waifus, trade fights for better views. We both need something new. Maybe we should just tell them. I shouldn't think I is somebody. So long to rendezvous. So long to.
Hello, hive-minded readers, and welcome to the Books and the Bees podcast. Just like bees play a crucial role in pollinating flowers and sustaining life, books pollinate minds and nurture the soul. We see the connection between the two, the delicate dance of ideas and stories that enrich our lives.
I'm Hailey.
I'm Cody.
Welcome to our podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy Tuesday for the listeners.
Happy Tuesday to the listeners. Wednesday for us. Woohoo.
Whoop whoop.
Halfway through the
Hailey,
week.
how's it going?
It's going. Yeah. It's going. How have you been?
I've been good. Super busy. I was really cold today. It was like record low temp for us, like 50 degrees, and
Wow.
I was freezing all day. Yeah. Super, super cold. Well, not really, but I didn't turn the heat on because it's officially May as we're recording this, and I don't want to turn my heat on in May. So I just put a blanket over myself as I worked from home today.
I feel that. Yeah. Anytime that I feel like May is a good time to turn the heat off. At least where the places that I've lived. It's like, okay, May, we're officially in spring, like time for the weather to warm up a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of like super hot weather,
Yeah.
but
Me too.
so
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to the summer heat for sure, because it gets hot where we are. I mean, not like Arizona or Texas hot, but it does get up into the hundreds, and even though it's a dry heat, it's still just not fun to live in it, and I hate it.
yeah. After living in two different climates where, in Washington, contrary to popular belief for our listeners, Washington, it does not rain all the time. If you live on the eastern side of the Cascade Mountains, you get dry, like horrible hot summers, okay? So word to the wise, stop asking Washingtonians if they enjoy rain, because most of us don't live where it's always rainy. Just a little FYI. I'm very passionate about
PSA.
that.
PSA for the listeners.
But after living in Illinois, southern Illinois, where it gets like 90 degrees and 100% humidity, I will take the dry heat any day of the week, every day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, humidity's different for sure.
Yeah, it's literally like walking outside and you instantly feel sticky and warm, like you just walked into like a bath or like a sauna. It's awful. I highly do not recommend it.
Yeah. I'm also I'm a sweater, so like I hate sweating.
Yeah.
And when it's humid, you're just sweating and it's just coming off of you, and I just can't stand it. So
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I do not do well in heat of any sort. So yeah, I'm a winter girly. I love the winter time. Fall, winter, those are my
Yeah.
those are my seasons for sure.
Yeah, my wife and I are the same way. We prefer the colder months. We sleep better too. Like sleeping in the wintertime is unparalleled.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. Should we get into what we're reading?
Yeah, let's do that. What are you getting into?
Well, last week I told all of you that I was going to start the tandem read, which is Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas and Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. And I'm in it. I'm 50% in, I think, roughly. And it's been a journey, let me tell you. For those who don't know, I should mention too, these are two books in the Throne of Glass series, which I am now basically pushing through to the end. And you read these books at the same time because the storylines are separate character arcs, but they take place in the same chronological time in the universe. And I won't even say who the characters are because I feel like it's spoilery. So if you know, you know. And if you don't know, then you got to catch up, I guess. the tandem read is something that I thought I was really going to be excited about, and I was super excited about last week. And now that I'm halfway through it, I'm not sure that I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. Like, I didn't expect... I don't know what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be fun, but what ends up happening is that Empire Storm has a lot of characters that I really like. Mm-hmm. And I read a few chapters of that book, and then I'm told by the tandem read list, which I will put in the show notes, to switch to Tower of Dawn, which is not a terrible book, but it's full of characters that I don't necessarily care for. It's also just like, it's one character that's been there since the beginning, and then it's mostly new characters that you get introduced to in this book or in the book before. Mm-hmm. And so you don't know the characters as well, and it's a whole new part of the world. So like it's just not what you're used to, and it's different. So then I switch to that book and I read a few chapters, and then I switch back to Empire Storms, and I switch back. And what ends up happening is every chapter I look at the tandem list to make sure I'm in the right order, because I'm horrified I'm going to mess it up and like spoil myself for something. Mm-hmm. And so I don't get lost in the books. Like, I read Queen of Shadows in like 3 days, and I was able to just sit and read for an hour uninterrupted. But now with this one, I'm forced to, read 2 chapters and then switch, or, whatever. And so it's hard for me to get into the books because of the tandem read. And I think maybe if you read them physically, it'd be a little easier, because you could bookmark like the pages. Right. And I've seen a lot of people do that on TikTok, and I thought it was going to be easier to read it virtually because they're both really big books, and I could just have it on my Kobo to switch back and forth. But I think it's actually easier to read them physically for this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I also I've read the whole series, minus the novellas that were released after, I think. And I could be wrong about that, don't quote me. But I read Empire of Storms after Tower of Dawn. I didn't know that it was a tandem read at all. And I can imagine how like tedious that would be to switch back and forth and make sure, because you have to look at the list every time, right? Like, it's not like you can just go from like, oh, I'm in chapter 1, now I read chapter 1 of the next book, now I read chapter 2, then chapter, it's like, I feel like there's probably a lot of like parts that you have to catch up on. And like, for me, no shade to people who enjoyed Tower of Dawn. I did not enjoy it. Not that it wasn't a good book. I think that it was a good book. I'm kind of in a similar boat as you, as far as it wasn't about characters that I was necessarily fond of. And then to top it off, I just felt like it was so boring because so much stuff happens in Empire Storms. Like, so much is happening. So, and I think I read that book like fairly quickly, because it has like the leverage to get you through with what's happening. But honestly, kudos for taking on that the task of tandem reading.
I really thought I was going to like it, because I'm a scientist in my day job. My whole life is looking at spreadsheets and checking boxes. Like, that's what I do all day. But I think it's just something that I don't like to do in reading. I don't like to it feels like homework. And for somebody who usually likes homework, it's weird that I don't want to like do this. Yeah. But I tried it. I'm gonna finish it, because I feel like it'd be weird to finish not on tandem read, because I'm halfway through. I might as well finish it. But I would say, for the listeners out there who feel pressured to do the tandem read, maybe consider it. Maybe consider not doing it. If you decide you like it and you enjoy it, if you're somebody who's done the tandem read, more power to you. But I feel like so many people are advertising it, and I don't think it's necessarily worthwhile.
Yeah.
But, to each their own.
Yeah, I can't imagine honestly doing that under any other circumstance than paperback, because I was just thinking in my head, like, God, what a horrible task that would be if you were like an audio listener.
Oh, no way.
And you're just
I don't think
pausing,
you could do it.
going back, hitting play, pausing. Oh God, that'd be the worst.
Yeah, I don't think you could do that. Whew.
Yeah, sounds monumental.
Sounds monumental. Yeah. So I might be done with it for next week's episode. We'll see. But we're getting there, and I'm excited to continue and see how the series goes. I'm probably going to do a book break between Kingdom of Ash. Is that the last book?
Sounds right.
Because after reading 1,400 pages, I might take a break.
That's
but
so
I'm
much.
definitely going to finish the series. Yeah, I'm definitely going to finish the series pretty soon because it's picking up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk about something else that I just started reading, which is a comic series that just came out. It's called Feral, and it's written by Tony Fleeks and drawn by Trish Forstner. And it's a comic book series about these cats that escape a pound, I believe. They get caught in some sort of weird pound, and they escape as the van that's transporting them crashes, and there's some sort of super rabies coming out that is infecting all of the animals, and everybody's worried about it. It's almost like a pre-apocalyptic situation, and the story revolves around these two cats trying to avoid this disaster that's happening. And it just started, so it's not a lot's happened, so I'm not going to get much more than that. But the second issue came out just the other day, and I've really enjoyed it. I love animal POVs. I think it's one of my favorite things in books. It's always fun to have an animal perspective, and this has been a really good book, or comic, I should say. And the second issue, which I have here with me that Hailey can't see, well, she can see the cover of it, but it's actually glow in the dark.
Oh, wow.
And so it's got like a glow in the dark title, and it's got little skeleton outlines for the cats. It's really a cute cover. So I love it when comic books do that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So check that out if you're so inclined. I always like to throw in a comic every once in a while because I do read a decent amount of comics, and I feel like I don't talk about them very much on the pod. So I'll try to include more as I get there.
Yeah. I'm not much of a comic girly outside of like X-Men, but I don't like partake in the reading of comics very often, so
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
Hailey, what are you reading?
So I'm diving into 2 books currently. One is called Need Me by Tessa Bailey, and I legitimately just started it, so I don't have any updates on the characters, the story, but nothing. And similarly, the next book that I'm reading is The Stand-In by Lily Chu, which is the same author that did The Comeback, which is probably one of my favorite books that I've read since my recent coming back into reading books in general. But yeah, and also in the same boat as I literally just started it, so not much to say about it other than I'm sure it'll probably be great because the last book that I read of the authors was awesome and I loved it, so I have a feeling it's probably going to be just as good. Yeah, and I'm reading that one on my iPhone, on my iBooks, and I don't know if the sale's still going, but if maybe our listeners are interested, it was on sale for 99 cents or $1.99 or something, don't quote me.
Nice. But
yeah, so I was like, hell yeah, and I was excited, and she does have another book, the author has another book coming out soon, so yeah, check that out if you're interested in maybe reading some nice romance.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I actually have a funny story about The Need Me by Tessa Bailey.
Oh, really?
I saw somebody reading it in the wild a week ago.
Oh, really?
I was at the clinic at my campus, and the gal that checked me out was reading it, and she had it flipped upside down. And I said, "Oh, is that a good book? I recognize the author." And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, it's a good book." Very, I don't know, condescending is not the right word, but very short, and did not clearly want to talk to me about the book. And I was like, wait, no, tell me about the book. I want to know. But she was like, yeah, it's fine. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
The way that Tessa Bailey writes, I wonder if maybe she was in a steamy part in the book or something, or the individual, whoever the person was.
Yeah,
and
she
then they were
yeah.
they were
it was,
oh my god.
Interesting.
Those interactions are so funny. I feel like the only real interaction that I've had with someone like in the wild with books was for the author Lily Chu, the book The Comeback. The gal recommended it to me. Her book club had just finished reading it or something along those lines, and I'm so glad that she recommended it. So yeah. I guess if you're out in the wild, like don't be scared if someone comes up to you and goes, "Oh my gosh, what are you reading?"
Oh, yeah. There's the podcast I listen to, Reading Glasses, they have merch that one of the shirts says, "Ask me what I'm reading," and then there's another one that says, "Don't ask me what I'm reading," for those who don't want to be bothered when they're reading.
That's funny.
And yeah, that lady should buy the "Don't bother me
Yeah.
when I'm reading." But she wasn't reading; she was checking me out. She had the book, put away to check me out of the clinic. So I felt like it was fair game, but apparently it wasn't. Never ask her again if she's reading another book. just mind my own business.
Right? Yeah. Just go back at some point and then be like, "Hey, so how's that book?" And see what she says. She'll probably be like, "What the hell?"
She'll be like, "Who are you?
Yeah.
And why are you talking to me?
Why are you asking me about a book I just finished?"
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fairly short book though, so I think I'll be able to get into it, or get through it fairly quickly. So.
Yeah. Great. They sound good. I know the other Lola Chu book that you mentioned, The Comeback, I really wanted to read.
Yeah.
And it's on my TBR, so I'm sure I'll get to it at some point.
It's really good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Hailey, do we have any beekeeping that we want to talk about?
Kinda. I mean, I just have my little beekeeping thing it'll be the week that this episode comes out. I will be the next day going to a book meet and greet for Piper CJ. Her book, The Deer and the Dragon, will be released on, let me just double check real quick before it releases May 7th of this year. So next week,
Boop,
it'll be out. And The Deer and the Dragon by Piper CJ. I'm very excited for it. But yeah, I'll be going to the book signing, and there'll be book signing and food, I'm assuming, and drinks, I'm assuming, and I'm really excited. And apparently another author that's kind of gaining traction will also be there. Bear with me while I look them up super duper quick, because one of my friends asked me about the meet and greet, and she was like, "Oh, is so-and-so gonna be there?" And I was like, "Who?" And she's like, "Oh, there's another author, and it's Janine O'Reilly, which the book is How Does It Feel?" And I didn't pay to have that book, or to because when I was buying the tickets, you have to pay for the ticket, which essentially gives you a book, and then you do the signing and the meet and greet, yada yada. But I didn't pay for that other book because it's a dual thing, similar to year before, 2022. So the year before, where I met Piper CJ for the first time and Emily McIntyre, and yeah, so I don't know, maybe I'll pick up another book if they have any extras. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and I'm really excited for it. So yeah,
that sounds great.
Yeah,
I'm excited for you. I know you love Piper CJ, so it'll be fun. I love meeting authors.
Yeah.
I've only ever met I've met some like local authors, but I met Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon a couple years ago.
That's so cool.
And it's always surreal to meet authors that create worlds that you love.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but like through Bookstagram, kind of interacting with authors is really cool, and it's not something that I ever thought would ever be a thing in my life growing up, because I feel like back then it was not very often or very frequent that you got to interact with authors of books. So unless you paid to go somewhere and get a ticket, and it's harder to do when you're an adolescent. So yeah,
right. You also have to live in a decent sized city so that they visit, because if they don't, they're not gonna come see your town. So yeah, it can be a little challenging. Cool. Well, I actually do have a little bit of beekeeping, because we have decided that we're going to do another book club book for June. So you have plenty of time to get it on hold at the library or go buy it if you want to. We're going to try reading the prequel novellas of Sarah J. Maas' Throne of Glass, and it's collectively called The Assassin's Blade, but you can read them separately in certain sources. And we're going to read it for June. We're going to read one novella for each week in June, so we'll have all 4 done within June. And I'm really excited about it because I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I haven't read any of those. So, and I think I already mentioned that, but I haven't read any of them. I've heard they're good. I've heard that they, like, well, I don't know. I don't know if they, like, follow the storyline, if they're, which characters they're about. I really haven't done much research about any of them, so I'm really excited to be surprised.
Yeah, I know there's a similar to the tandem read. There's a big controversy on when you're supposed to read the prequel, I guess is what they call it. And I've been told to read it first, which obviously neither of us did. And I've been told to read it after Crown of Midnight, which I think I could see the reasoning behind it without getting spoilery. And then I've been told to read it after Heir of Fire, which is the 3rd book, because apparently you meet some characters in Queen of Shadow that are in the novella. And that's, I don't know any more than that. So I could even be wrong about it. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how those players kind of connect through. And, I'll be done with the series for sure by then. So we'll both be done with the main part of the series and be reading the prequels. And then I think after that, after we do Assassin's Blade, we can then do a spoilery episode on the whole Throne of Glass series.
Yes.
Which I'm really excited about too.
Yes, I would love that because that's hands down in my adult life probably my favorite series that I've ever read.
Yeah, I can't think of a series. There's been some trilogies that have been really good for me, but this is definitely like one of the best fantasy series that I've read. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and it's a lot of books too. So, it's
beefy.
It is beefy. Yeah. Some of those books are thick in themselves, so,
Yeah, they sure are.
Yeah.
They sure are.
Love some thick books.
Yeah. Yeah, so get those copies. We'll obviously be talking about it every week until, it comes up, so you'll have plenty of time. But yeah, go ahead and start thinking about getting that book on hold. I've actually seen the holds list be pretty small for that one. Like, I could get it on hold today through Libby, so I don't think it'll be too difficult for our listeners to get. And we'd love to have you read along with us.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
Whoop, whoop.
Woo.
Cool. All right. Well, today we are going to discuss the very important topic of getting over book slumps, which are, I guess we should define book slumps.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. How would you define a book slump, Hailey?
For me, a book slump would be that, like, I'd almost, like, call it kind of a little bit of a, I guess a slump is a good word because I don't want to use the word depression, but like, like I kind of just feel like you get so wrapped up in a book or a series or a trilogy or whatever, and then after finishing said book, series, trilogy, whatever, you kind of get hit with this like overwhelming like chasm of just kind of like, what do I do next? And it almost feels like to me like nothing could top that whatever you read before, and it's almost like really hard to get back into another book, series, trilogy, whatever. So yeah, it's a slump. Nothing really feels like you want to read it, and everything kind of feels lifeless and bland.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. It definitely happens after a really, really good series. Like ACOTAR put me in a book slump. There have been, several other books that put me in a book slump. But it also, I think, can happen from stress. Like if you're just stressed in your day-to-day life, you can kind of get yourself into a book slump. I think for most people that go to college, they have a 4-year long book slump because they're just so busy.
Yeah.
And, I know people, if you go to grad school, it's another extension of time where you're in a book slump. I was in a book slump for basically, I don't know, 6 years, I would say, because I barely read anything between like my first year of undergrad and my like third year of my PhD. So it could definitely be stress induced as well.
Yeah.
And it can last a long time. Book slumps can last years for sure.
I'd say so. I totally agree with that sentiment. As far as like college really put me outside of maybe a few books in the first couple years of college. After that, in my entire undergrad was like abso-freaking-lutely not. Like the last thing I want to do is open another book because textbooks just bore me to tears.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that's
They're
another element to a book slump is maybe you're reading stuff that's not very interesting and not that exciting, and the last thing you want to do is open another book, regardless of whether that book might actually be fun and enjoyable. So yeah, that's
true. I also wonder, like, I've always thought it'd be fun to edit books, like work for a publishing company, but then you're reading all day, and you're reading books you don't get the choice to read. Like you're either assigned or your publisher, whatever, takes up the books and somebody has to read them. So you have to read those books. And then at the end of the day, are you going to read more in the evening? Because I don't know if I would. I think it'd be tough to read all day for work and then relax by reading. I'm not sure how well it'd work for me to do that.
Yeah. I even get like that now with like what I currently do, which will remain nameless, but it's a very mentally taxing work that I do. I'm constantly having to use my brain, and it is tiring as all hell. And sometimes, after work, I really don't want to open up a book or, click on my book app. Although, on the flip side of that coin, sometimes reading gets me through my days. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons people can get into a book slump for sure. And a lot of different ways book slumps can look. But for us, and we both kind of went through book slumps earlier this year. I know I went through one that was, about, 2 or 3 weeks long that really took a while for me to get out of. And I know you had one earlier this year too, Hailey.
Yeah.
What are our tips to get out of book slumps?
Yeah. So I recently saw something on Instagram, Bookstagram, whatever, today actually, that it said, quote, "Read whatever the fuck you want to read." And for some reason I was like, wow, what a perfect quote to see right before talking about book slumps, because I feel like that's another layer to being in a book slump is you don't know what the hell to read, or maybe and that's another point that I'm going to make is you fall into the pressure of feeling like you have to read a book or a trilogy or a series or whatever because it's super popular, and or maybe your friends are talking about it and they're like, oh my gosh, you have to read this book. And it's like, sometimes that pressure, at least for me personally, sometimes can feel like a lot, and then you're like, well, now it's almost like the urge to read leaves me. So I think that just kind of getting out of your own way and just reading whatever makes you happy and makes you feel good, of whatever genre. I mean, some people, if that's nonfiction, if that's a bibliography, if that's a biography, if that's a whatever, I don't know if bibliography was the right word, but you know what I mean. It could be any of those things. Maybe you want to go read a freaking textbook on science or something. Not my cup of tea, but whatever makes your little brain light up. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think readers can. I just did it to myself this last week, where I use the library almost for everything when it comes to reading, and I get a lot of holds that come up, and then I'm like, okay, I feel the pressure to read the books as they come in. I've got a timeline, like I've got 14 days to read them if they're an ebook. And so just the other day, right before I started the tandem read, I had 2 books, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get these 2 books finished, and then I'm going to read, the tandem read. But I didn't want to read the 2 books because I was so excited to start the tandem read last week after finishing Queen of Shadows, which I loved that book so much. I was so excited to jump into the next 2. And I tried reading the 2 books, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't want to read these right now. They're probably good books. I'm not going to mention them because I read like 3 pages of both of them and ended up returning them both. And I just put them back on hold and said, I'm going to try these later, and I'm going to jump into the books that I really want to read. And so even like, I feel like readers can pressure themselves into reading books that they necessarily don't want to read or don't need to read, or maybe it's not the right time for them to read. I think we are really good at putting a lot of stress on ourselves.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. And I feel like the whole point of, or one of the major points, I'll say, of reading is to feel good, is to make your brain happy, in whatever capacity that is. So why read books that don't make you happy?
Absolutely. Like, we're doing this for fun. This isn't work.
Yeah. Exactly.
We're not here to just make our lives hard.
Yeah.
We're here to do it for fun. So
yeah, I agree.
It's important to remember that.
I agree. And on that note, I think and I'll just say this, that ARC reading, since I started ARC reading, kind of has added a little bit of a layer to my book slumps because I had never experienced before. So if any of our listeners out there are, maybe you're an ARC reader and you read books, advanced reader copies, sometimes it can feel a little job-esque. So,
it does.
And something that I do to kind of combat that for myself is I try not to add too many books to my like requested or whatever. And then I really be mindful, at least recently, because I did not realize how close some of my deadlines were to getting a review out. Which thankfully I just prioritized those books. It was whatever. But I've now, because I know that I have some like life events happening soon, I was like, okay, I need to just pick books that are releasing like way later in the year, so that way I'm not sitting here going, oh my gosh, I need to get this done amidst everything else that's happening in life. So yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. I was going to mention that too. I do think ARCs, they do add like a layer. It does feel like a job because you have a deadline to get them in. I'm actually looking, I have one that's due pretty soon. I've actually been excited to read. I just haven't had the chance to read it yet. Oh, I just found it. There it is.
Because there's an archive date. And for our listeners that maybe not know, on the platform that we use for our ARC reads, there's like a publishing date when the book is actually published, and then there's an archive date. So if your book is within the archive date, before the archive date, if you read the book, you still have time. So yeah.
I do have time. Thank God.
Cool.
Yeah, it comes out. I won't say the book because I'm probably going to mention it later.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too soon. But it comes out the 28th of May.
Oh, wow.
So I have a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to get it read before it comes out because it looks good. It's an author that I've actually mentioned on the podcast before. And I really liked her other book that I read. So I'm excited to read this one. But it just hasn't been, it's a romance book. And I haven't been really in a romance mood in the last couple months, so yeah, but I'm excited to get to it. Probably will, maybe that'll be my in-between book between the tandem read and Kingdom of Ash. That would be a nice light read to do, so maybe I'll do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm very much a mood reader. That's one thing that is really easy to induce a book slump, is if you're a mood reader. Like, you have to be reading books that are fitting the mood that you're in. And for me, a lot of times, because I'm using the library, I don't necessarily have the book that I want to read at the time. And so it can be a real challenge. It can be detrimental for sure. One of the things that I've personally used to get out of a book slump, I actually used it to get out of the one this year, is to try a short book. And so I read Mammoths at the Gates by Nevo, which kind of has a dual purpose to get out of a book slump. One, it was a short book. It was like 100 pages, so very easy to get into, very casual. And it was a series that I have been reading, and it was, I knew the characters already, and it was a very easy storyline to kind of jump back into. It's a series, but it's not connected, so you don't have to remember anything. And the storyline is very casual and, very easy to read. And so, reading those short books can help you get out of a slump too.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's something that I usually look for when, that's my go-to strategy if I'm trying to get myself out of a book slump. That and smutty books. If it's quick and short and smutty, because it's so, and it can't be a sequel. And that's something that I will say is, if you're trying to get out of book slump, at least for me, my advice would be don't pick a series. Pick something that's finished. Yeah. That's a whole and complete book in itself. And maybe it isn't a series, but maybe it's like kind of a standalone situation. Those tend to be fine, at least for me. But yeah, if it's a standalone and I'm in between books or I'm facing like a really heavy book slump, I just read a really good smutty romance, and then it's like, okay, I can go into another. It kind of like gives me that like dopamine and like serotonin that I'm looking for. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's really good advice. Yeah, series can put you, they can get you out of a book slump if it's a really good series and you're really excited to read it. But I think most of the time a series is really daunting to start when you're in a book slump. So it can be really tricky for sure. One thing that I've also used that I don't do very often, but on occasion I'm known to do it, is to reread a book that I've already finished. And, it might be, I love Stephen King. And so I might reread a Stephen King book that I like, or, maybe there's a book from a different author that I've been really excited to reread or haven't read in a while. I might go back and reread that book and just, something that I've already read and I've listened to kind of get the juices flowing again. I've always found that to be helpful.
Yeah, I have never reread a book in my adult life.
Whoa.
Probably a couple times, I'm sure, when I was younger, but I tend not to reread books at all once I read them. But little fun fact about me, my brain, the way it works is my imagination is so active that when I'm reading a book, it's almost like I'm watching a movie, and all I have to do to kind of like remember what a book was about, I'm not talking like character names, fine details, none of that, but like the overall generalness of a book is if I look at like the title and I look at the book cover, then my brain like automatically starts filling in the gaps of what the book was about. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I do not have that. I have the sieve that is just nothing, where I can finish a book like in 2 days, and the following day I will have no memory of like most of the book outside of what happened. And I always thought it was because I'm a pretty fast reader. I read pretty fast, and I always thought maybe it's just because I'm reading so fast that I'm just not like absorbing the information. So I've tried to read slower. Even when I read slow, like it just never sticks with me. And so I can reread books pretty easily. I don't very often. If it's a series that's active, I'll go back and reread the books before the new one comes out so that I'm all, caught up and remember everything. But it's not very often that I reread, but there are some classic books that are really good for me to reread. I reread The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It's a very nice casual sci-fi that's just a really fun book to pick up and easy to go through. So a book like that, I do like to reread every once in a while. And I reread Lord of the Rings usually because I love Lord of the Rings so much. I reread it every couple years, and I reread Harry Potter even though the author's a trash baby. But I don't give her money anymore, so I just reread other means so that she doesn't get any money from me. But I love Harry Potter too. So
Lord of the Rings is one of those books series that I've never read. I've only watched the movies, and I've always been interested to read the books. but I've been told, and no tea, no shade to, oh my gosh, what is Tolkien?
Oh, J.R.R.
Yeah, thank
Tolkien.
you. My brain was like George R. R. Martin, and I was like, nope, that is not the
George
right.
R. R. Martin.
That's the other fantasy, ridiculously
That's the
long
other
books.
R.R..
Yeah. Which, how dare they? Like, come on.
I know.
No, but I loved the Game of Thrones books and all that. Not the Game of Thrones books, the Game of Thrones series. I read the first book and could not finish it. Could not get into the series. It was too much information. Which I'm like kind of scared is what Lord of the Rings is gonna be for me. And I have so much love for the movie franchise series, so I don't want to spoil it in my heart. So
yeah, the books are different for sure. I've been listening. I haven't done it in about a year or so, but the person who plays Gollum, Andy Serkin, I think his name
that
is.
sounds right.
He narrated the trilogy and The Hobbit.
Wow.
A couple years ago. During the pandemic, he did it.
That's cool.
And released them. And so I listened to the audiobooks of his voice, and it was so good. Yeah, he's just such a good speaker. And of course, when he gets to the Gollum parts of the books, he's Gollum.
Yeah.
You just hear his voice from
That's
the movies.
so cool.
So it's very cool. Yeah, it's very cool.
I'd love for Legolas, or oh my gosh, who's the actor that plays the like high elf? What's his name?
Legolas?
No, not Legolas, the other guy.
Oh, Elrond?
Yes, him. I would love to.
What is that guy's name?
I don't know, but
his
I'd
name.
love for his actor to narrate the books, or
That'd be cool.
or Gimli, right? Is that his name?
Or Gimli.
Yes. Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah. That'd be really cool.
I need all the actors of Lord of the Rings to narrate Lord of the Rings books. Stat, please. I'm
as
begging.
like a cast.
Yes.
They could just be a whole cast. That'd be so cool. I would love
Please.
that. Ian McClellan?
McKellen, yeah.
Ian McKellen. Narrating Gandalf in a book would be so
That'd be awesome. I would love that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that'd be so good.
The You Shall Not Pass. That'd be to read that as he's. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah. I would love that.
Formal request to the Lord of the Rings
please.
cast. Please. We're begging.
Do it. Yeah, I love that idea. What other tips do we have to get out of book slump?
Yeah, so something that you mentioned earlier was how you're a mood reader, or a little bit of a mood reader. And that got me thinking that I think something that can help people maybe stay away from book slumps, not that it's not inevitable. I'm sure at some point you may fall into a book slump, but maybe something to help combat it is to find out what kind of reader you are. Are you a mood reader? Are you someone that sticks like strictly to a TBR?
Yeah.
Are you an audio reader? Are you a physical book reader? Are you an e-reader? Are you a little bit of both or all three? You know, I think that that's like really important, because I'd say that I lean towards a mood reader, but I'm more so like, here's my TBR, I need to get it done, you know, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. And you know me, I'm like the exact opposite. Where my TBR is incomprehensible and I never look at it. I'm just like, oh, here's a book. Let me read this.
Yes.
If I'm in the mood for horror, I'm just going to go get a horror book and I'm just going to read it. Yeah. So I think that's a very good point. Knowing how to read, or how you like to read, I think is very important. And like last episode, we talked about tropes that we like.
yeah.
Being able to identify those tropes in books that you haven't read yet, I think is really helpful. Like, oh, I really want to read Enemies to Lovers, or you know, a cozy fantasy, or whatever, an animal POV book. Like, knowing that you like those types of things can set you up to read more books that you are going to enjoy, rather than books you're not going to want to finish, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.
And my other tip was actually a part of that as well. Is my suggestion would be to change up how you read. So maybe if you have been an e-reader for a while and you're in a little bit of slump, maybe try a physical book or try an audiobook and see, does it help change things? Maybe it doesn't, and okay, I'm not going to try that again. But maybe try a different format, or you could try reading at a different time of the day. Like if you typically read in the evening, maybe try in the morning with your cup of coffee, or on your lunch break, or something along those lines to help mix it up a little bit. Or you can, take yourself on a little book date where you get a cup of tea and light a candle and maybe take a bath with a book and read in the bathtub, which I love to do. Or you can, go to a coffee shop and read in a coffee shop if you don't normally do that, and just try putting yourself in a different setting to see if maybe the mood will help. Or try music. Try listening to music and see if that helps too. I know a lot of people love to read music.
Yeah. I have it's a reading writing playlist, but I have a reading writing playlist that's curated. That's full of like different songs that are all in kind of the same, I wouldn't say genre, but like mood. So, and I really like listen because I can kind of like tune it out. Or and I think we've talked about this in a previous episode at some point, but those, what are they called? The things on YouTube where you can the ambient music. Look it up on YouTube and type in like, I don't know, maybe you're reading Twilight and you want to listen to some fun Twilight music. Type in like Twilight ambient music on YouTube and it'll give you a nice little like reading playlist of music to listen to while you read.
Yeah, that's true. I do. I don't actually like to listen to music when I read. I've tried it and it's not useful for me. But every winter around Christmas time, they always have like the YouTube videos of like the Yule logs and stuff. And I do like to do that occasionally.
Yes. I love those.
Those are very fun. I
partake in Disney Plus, unfortunately. And please don't come for me. It's part of my childhood. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
And there's an Arendelle Yule log, and it's so cute. But it's a Frozen themed. Again, please don't come for me.
Oh my gosh.
But it's a Frozen themed Yule log, and it's a fireplace, and it's very cute. And then on another streaming platform, there was a, oh my gosh, my brain just went blank. It was a Studio Ghibli. Why can't I think of his name? He's from Howl's Moving Castle. He's the fire spirit. Nope, my brain's blank.
I've never seen it, so I can't.
But it's really good. Calcifer. There we go. I'm so sorry to our listeners that just had to go on that journey with me. His name's Calcifer, and it's literally just like an ongoing clip of him being Calcifer, which if you haven't watched Studio Ghibli, you won't know what I'm talking about, but if you have, you'll know. It's very cute, and it's fairly long, but there's a lot of Yule log or fireplace ambient things out there, so yeah, highly recommend. And it's very cozy. Yeah. I love wintertime, especially if you don't have a fireplace or a pseudo fireplace. It's nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I really like those two. Do we have any other tips?
I wouldn't say tips, just, for me, like, I'm thinking about my experiences with book slumps, and Throne of Glass is one of those ones that put me in a serious book slump. I mean, serious book slump. I couldn't read for like a month after I finished those books because it was such a huge undertaking. And I don't remember. Actually, I can look it up because my iBooks tracks my books that I've read, which is nice, in like chronological order, which is also really nice.
That's actually really cool.
And it's automatic. Like literally, as soon as you finish a book, it immediately not chronological? It catalogs. That's what I was looking for. The book, into a list, and it's really nice.
So you read all of Throne of Glass back to back?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I started with the main one, and I can tell you what dates I started. On November 27th, and then December 1st, I read Crown of Midnight. Then January 1st, I read Heir of Fire. Was probably because it was Christmas time in December, and I had things to do. Yeah. January 1st, read Heir of Fire. January 6th, read Queen of Shadows. January 11th, read Empire of Storms. January 18th, read Tower of Dawn. Then I started House of Earth and Blood, which is the Crescent City books. Oh, for some reason in February, like rated between the Tower. And I think that's because the Tower of Dawn was so, no tea, no shade, boring for me to read. And then I finished Kingdom of Ash, February 12th.
Dang.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
that's crazy.
devoured those books. But the book that got me out of it was The Love Hypothesis
Oh yeah.
by Ali Hazelwood.
That's a good book.
Such a good
Yeah.
book. It's wholesome. It's, well, I shouldn't say wholesome. It's a cozy read. It's definitely, there's some not so wholesome things happening.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
But it's a good book. It's well written. And then surprisingly, I proceeded to then read under like 1, 2, 3 more of her books, like literally right after. So
Yeah.
But yeah. So if you know, are ever in a really bad book slump, short and sweet books, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a different genre than what you just finished. Like that could definitely do it too.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that that's what helped too. And I think I kind of switch back and forth between like fantasy / fantasy romance and then contemporary / like sports romances, because it does kind of prevent you from getting too stuck in one genre for too long.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I agree. I think it's great.
Yeah. Any more book tips that you can think of?
You know, I don't have any more tips, but I do have just, you know, a piece of, I don't know if it's advice, but I think there's one thing that we could all be okay with, and that is just, if you don't like a book that you're reading, just dump it. If you are not enjoying the book, remember, you're reading it for fun. Unless you have to read it for a school assignment,
Yeah.
then, you know, you have to read it. I'm not telling you not to do your homework, but if you're reading for fun and you're not enjoying the book, it doesn't matter how popular it is. It doesn't matter if your best friend told you that you need to read it. If you're not liking it, just dump it and go to something that you are going to like, because you only live once, and you don't get any brownie points for reading these books.
Yeah.
So you should just enjoy your reading and don't be afraid to dump books. It definitely is something that I've learned. I've grown into learning how to dump books. I've dumped a couple books this year already that just didn't do it for me. And it's not because they were bad books. It was just because I didn't feel like I was in the right headspace to read those at the time. And I'll probably come back to them at some point. But right now, that's not what I wanted to read. So I'm dumping them and moving on. So it's hard to do, but it's worth it for sure.
Yes. Sorry, my dog just started making noises in their sleep, and I'm not sure if the mic's gonna pick it up or not.
I didn't hear it, but
Okay, good.
That's very cute.
It's very cute. But yeah, life's too short to read books you don't like or enjoy.
Yeah,
For sure.
it is. It is.
Don't read shitty books. Read the good books.
Read the good books. Yeah, I don't want to, like, this is the other reason I stopped doing like star ratings for books, because I don't want to read a 1-star book.
Yeah.
If it's a 1-star book, I shouldn't have read it. I should have dumped it. And so all of the books that I were rating were like between 3 and 5 stars. And so I was like, well, there's not really a point in me doing this anymore, because if I read a book that I think is a 1-star and then I did a bad job reading it, like, I should have dumped it. And maybe it's somebody else's 5-star book. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I didn't like it, I'm not going to finish it. That's my motto in my reading life.
Yeah, I will agree with that sentiment, but I probably will not live by that sentiment, because I will suffer through a book. I will. I'm one of those people. I'll do it. Might get good. I don't know.
It might get good. That is true. Sometimes it does. Like, yeah, I've definitely read books that have gotten really good at the end, but I've definitely read books that did not get really good at the end too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. For sure.
Great. Well, those are our tips on how to get out of a book slump. If you have tips that you use to get out of a book slump, or if you're in a book slump and want some help from us, please reach out to us. We would love to chat with you. We'd love to hear your suggestions and what you do to get out of a book slump.
Yes, I would love to know. I'm very curious now.
Yes, me too. Please tell us.
Yes.
Tell us what you do. Yeah. And if you want to know how to reach us, we have an email. It's booksandbeespod@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram, which is @booksandthebeespod. So feel free to reach out with us there. DM us on Instagram if you want to comment on one of our posts. We'd love to interact with you. And I do want to give a quick thank you to American Indie for the use of their song Rendezvous. It is still a bop. I love it. And it's a great song.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else we have before we wrap up?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. I think we're good.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this literary journey as much as we did. If you're buzzing with excitement, don't forget to subscribe, email us, and leave a Hive 5-worthy review on your podcast listening app. Until next time, happy reading, and may your shelves be filled with tales as enchanting as a blooming garden. Keep the buzz alive, and we'll catch you in the next chapter. Bye for now.
Bye.